Hello and welcome to the Intentionally Intuitive podcast. Today, I just wanted to kind of pop on here to talk about briefly some of the very interesting symbology that I'm seeing with this new Pope, Pope Leo XIV. And I just wanted to kind of talk about it. Now, keep in mind that personally, I believe that the universe speaks to us in symbols, right? That's the easiest way to get messages through to us is through numbers or symbols or metaphors. And so the last day or so, there's been some really interesting symbols that I've been noticing that tie into a lot of what we're kind of seeing on the global stage, a lot of what we're seeing in the United States, especially as the United States comes to its 250th birthday in the next couple of years. I mean, there's a lot going on here. And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to break it down a little bit. Now, keep in mind, these are just symbols that I'm seeing. You can certainly, go down the rabbit hole yourself, dive a little bit deeper, or follow the rabbit hole for your own symbols that you're seeing. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to bring it to your attention in case you hadn't noticed it. And, how it's going to play out will, of course, remain to be seen over the coming years or over the many years to follow. But it's just kind of interesting to pay attention and just notice the connectivity that is kind of like these symbols connect a lot of dots. And I know that's kind of putting a lot of pressure on one person, but it's very, very interesting to me. So again, just wanted to bring it to your attention. So we'll talk about each of the symbols that I think are most prevalent right now. And yeah, we can kind of see how it plays out moving forward. Now, it's interesting to me because this Pope is the first American Pope, right? And I think it's interesting because there's been a significant emphasis on American, right? He's an American. He's the first American to become the Pope and to sit in that seat. And it's interesting because, America is a continent. There's North America, there's South America. It includes, obviously, Canada, the United States, and all of Latin America, South America. So America is the continent. And, though there's not, usually we obviously refer to people from the United States as Americans, there's not really a word to describe Americans or people from the United States other than United States citizens or people from the United States or Americans, right? So I think that's probably where the emphasis comes from. However, I just don't think that it's a coincidence that those words were used, right? And why do I say that? Because there's symbolism there. And that symbolism is, so Leo XIV was born in Chicago in the United States, right? So that puts an emphasis on the United States. However, he lived and worked and spent, I think, over 20 years in, I believe, Peru, in South America, even to the extent to where I believe in 2015, he was granted citizenship in Peru. So there's this connectivity between North America and South America, right? Like he's got extensive experience in the culture of a significant culture from Latin America, South America, in Peru. And what's interesting here and what draws the symbolism here is there is an ancient indigenous prophecy. And I apologize, I don't know directly where it stems from, like which tribe or which nation it stems from. And it might be several. But there's an ancient indigenous prophecy that talks about the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. And I'm not going to try to explain what that is. I encourage you to speak to someone who's indigenous and who can explain it better than I'm going to be able to do. But at the bare bones of that prophecy is the eagle, which is representative of North America, so Canada and the United States, and the condor, which is representative of South America. And the prophecy talks about the eagle and the condor flying together once more, flying side by side once more. So unification, unity, connectivity, a reemergence sort of this unified state. And if you speak to someone, who is Indigenous, they will tell you that we are in that prophecy now. So this is like a lengthy, ongoing thing as we continue to move through it. But that was something that was really interesting because the significance of him being from America, first of all, being born in the United States, but then spending such a significant amount of time in South America, it energetically sort of marries the two, so to speak. And you can see how it, he's going to have experiences and perspectives from many cultures. So that's the first symbol I wanted to point out, is that prophecy of the eagle and the condor. And now we have this Pope who is on the global stage in a seat where he can do a tremendous amount of good for unity and bringing people together, which ultimately at the core, I think, of the eagle and the condor prophecy is really that, right? Like people coming together, recognizing that we are all one energetically. And doing a lot of healing in that process. So we have that symbol, which I think is really, really significant. And I love that even though there's been a little bit of backlash, right? Like, because the word American is used, and really the word is, I think, being used to signify the United States. But I think it's so much bigger than that because he really does have such a strong presence in America, right? Like, not Canada so much, right? But North America and South America. And I think that is really significant, especially as it ties to the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. Now, the next symbol that I thought was really fascinating is that he chose the name, right? Because when you become Pope, you evidently choose the name that you want to be recognized as. And he chose Leo. Okay, why is this significant? Leo, if you look at the United States, and if you look at the astrology chart of the United States, Leo, and assuming that all the information that's, the time of birth and that sort of thing for the United States is accurate, that's online. Leo is in the 9th house, which we're going to talk about in a second. But first I want to mention that the United States' North Node, the point of destiny, where we're moving towards, or where we're meant to step into in this sort of lifetime of the United States, is in the house of Leo, or in the sign of Leo, in the 9th house. The 9th house often sort of symbolizes the pursuit of truth, of meaning. It explores our philosophical beliefs, our spiritual values, and intellectual curiosity, as well as our search for deeper understanding of life and of the world. Okay? So he chooses the energy of Leo, which just happens to be the sign that the North Node sits in the 9th house for the United States. Now, what's also interesting about that is that we are currently in 2025 in a 9 universal cycle. So again, very interesting that this is occurring specifically in 2025. So let's break down what that 9 universal cycle can mean. And I do have a video about this for the year ahead. If you look at that, like for the year ahead for 2025, I have a very specific video for the universal cycle of the 9, which we are in. So I suggest listening to that if you're curious, just because so much of what this cycle can bring about this year for us is about a greater reckoning, right? So very, very interesting. But let's break down this 9 just so we can kind of tie this together. Now, the 9 as an energy is the universal lover of humanity. It's the humanitarian. This is usually an energy that's patient, that's kind and understanding. And it's usually at the peak of life's expression. And so it's an energy that helps to show others the way. And almost an energy that seems to receive wisdom from above. So you end up knowing when you're in a 9 cycle that the true way of happiness is in service to others. This is an energy that's never petty. It can deal with broad concepts and it can achieve some level of success in the face of difficulties. And it's willing to share that success with others, not sort of hoard it to conform to some kind of hierarchy. It's a very much a all kind of energy. It's not about self. It's not about I. It's not about the one individual. It's about the all and bringing people together in some capacity. So when we're moving through a 9 cycle, this can bring about change, endings, some kind of greater charity, but in a way that helps to uplift, empower, and inspire people. And it can bring about, again, some kind of greater inspiration. So he has the ability to, because remember, it's like when you're in a universal cycle, what you initiate under that cycle, and the universal cycle is usually collective, right? So it's on the global stage. So what we initiate this year under this 9 energy has the potential to hold this vibration, right? It's being sort of initiated and built within this energy, this vibration. So he has the power to be a great inspiration in the years that follow from this initiation. Events can take place really quickly now, with lots of stops and starts. But again, those stops and starts are initiating some kind of significant change and transformation. And it's interesting because there is an emphasis on sort of eliminating that which no longer serves, eliminating that which holds us back from greater evolution, greater growth, greater prosperity from a spiritual sense. The 9 promises that if we're not able to sort of free ourselves from associations or situations that no longer are necessary for our greater development, our greater evolution, then the 9 cycle will do it for us. The 9 cycle can come in, swoop in, and remove what needs removing or bring to light what needs being brought to light. And so a lot of goals can be achieved under this energy. A lot of things coming to culmination, coming to completion. Again, getting rid of the things that are keeping us on a lower vibration. That's the power of the 9 energy. And it's in a long cycle. It's a year-long cycle. There's a lot of potential healing with this energy, a lot of opportunities for release and massive transformation. But that transformation might not be comfortable, but it's transformation that needs to happen. It can bring in an end of a significant cycle to create some kind of a brief pause before the start of a significant news cycle, right? And it is interesting because the pause was quite brief. Like, from the transition from the last pope to this pope was a matter of a couple of days, right? Once they started the process. And usually, it can often take much longer than that. So the pause has been brief. But there's a shift happening on a global stage. And I'm not trying to put like all this power and emphasis and, on this person or put this person on a pedestal. I'm just saying there are a significant amount of symbols around this person where they are now in a seat with the ability to make some significant changes in the world through their work, which is very much 9 energy. It's going to be up to them what they choose to do with it. It's going to be up to Leo XIV, what he chooses to do with the power that he has been given. And I'm not just talking about material power or power in the sense of having control over people. I'm talking about the power that he has been given by the forces, the unseen forces that be, that are saying you are in a position now to do a tremendous amount of good in the world if you choose to. And the fact that he has been sort of initiated under this 9 universal cycle means that, again, globally, he has the power to bring about significant change and evolution through his work. So it'll be interesting to see how he uses that power. The other thing I would say about this is, the 9 energy is very, as much as people hate this word now, it's very woke, right? It's very much about forgiveness, understanding, compassion, empathy, like not just being so self-absorbed that you only think about how things affect you or how your actions affect you. The 9 energy is about the all, taking into consideration how our actions, our individual actions, affect the many, right? Even if it's energetically, how our actions affect all that we are connected to. And energetically, we are connected to everything. So, and that's science. You can look at the science. That's not even being woo, it's science. So it is really, really interesting here because there is this pivotal moment that is occurring in a 9 universal cycle with this person this individual who has consciously chosen the name Leo, which just happens to be, again, where the United States North Node sits in the 9th house, which again, the 9th house in astrology is very similar to the 9 energy in numerology. It holds a lot of the same characteristics and traits. And, right now, like it or lump it, the United States is on the global stage. And what the United States does, unfortunately, affects the world. And so it's just very interesting to me that of all the times in history, this is the time that someone gets elected or confirmed, I guess is the word, to sit in the seat of the Pope. And who is the first time to be an American to do that? And, a United States citizen to do that. Very, very, very interesting, I will say. Also, again, I don't believe in coincidences, but it's very coincidental that he chose that name. I would love to know the reasoning behind it, and maybe there's some research I can do to figure that out. But yeah, I love the synchronicities. I love this stuff. And so very fascinating. Now, it doesn't end there. But before I get to the next part, I just want to reiterate, it is interesting too, because that 9 energy is all about making time for charitable action and thinking primarily of other people's welfare, right? Filling up your own cup, but then what are you doing with the excess? What are you doing with the excess that you don't need, that's not really making a difference in your life? Share it, like distribute it, help to uplift, empower, inspire others type of thing. And it's interesting because I really do feel that he's in this position. And again, I don't mean to put like all this emphasis on one person, but the reality is he is in a position of power, of influence. And so he has that power to lead by example. And there's a lot of people who follow that lead. There's a lot of people who really look up to the Pope, who are inspired by the Pope, who feel a spiritual connection with the Pope. That's a lot of power. So it'll be really interesting to see how he utilizes that power in the coming years. Well, really for the rest of his life. Yeah, he just has a lot of opportunity right now to break through some of the heavier forces at play, to be that sort of beacon of light who can lead people towards something better, towards a better way of, a healthier way, a more uplifted way, a more inspired way of living that not only takes self into consideration, but takes others into consideration as well. So yeah, I really hope, I have a lot of hope riding on this. I really hope that he does beautiful things with this. Okay, the other thing that was really interesting, and again, I'm kind of gearing a lot of this towards the US because, the US right now is definitely on, all eyes are on the US. And for good reason, right? There's a lot happening here that affects a lot of people, not only in this country, but around the world. Now, this is the other thing that I thought was just wild. So he's Leo the 14th, right? 14-5. Now, if you listen to my podcast that I had on the United States that I did fairly recently, last month or the month before, I talked extensively about the United States, the numerology of the United States, what the transits that we're moving through, where the direction we're headed in, which, by the way, the essence energy that we're moving through in the United States for the next several years is 15-6 energy, which is all about conditional love versus unconditional love versus etc. It's all in the video. I suggest watching it if you haven't, because it's fascinating. The numerology is fascinating. But where we're ultimately headed, and I think it's like in 4 years, perhaps 5 years, I don't have it right in front of me, where we're ultimately headed with that essence energy is 9 energy, an essence of 9. Very significant. These 9s, man, they keep coming up. Now, that's not the only thing that was really wild. So, Leo the 14th, that 14-5 energy, that 14-5 energy is the life path of the United States. Man, tell me that is not significant. That 14-5 energy is karmic, right? And I talk all about what the 14-5 means in that video. So again, I highly suggest watching it if you haven't. Even if you're not from the United States, it's just really fascinating to understand the numerology of the US and the direction that we're moving in, or the direction that we're meant to be moving in. But ultimately, that 14-5 requires a tremendous amount of effort, a tremendous amount of commitment and follow through. And the heart of the 14-5 is about freedom, about progressiveness, about authenticity, about being unique and celebrating our differences, not just our similarities. right? About celebrating what makes us unique, what unique gifts we have to bring to the table so that we can create something significant and powerful and beautiful that incorporates all, not just the individual. But there's this greater sense of freedom. Freedom to be who you came here to be, to love who you came here to love, to do what you came here to do without restriction, without unnecessary restriction. And it's interesting because the 14-5, a lot of times if we're looking at like traditional numerology, if you have this as your life path, it indicates that in a past life, you would have been in a position where you would have taken people's freedoms away. And in this lifetime, you are meant to atone for that and do better, right? You might get into a position where you are able to sort of shift the injustices, bring justice to a situation, and bring greater freedom into a situation, right? And I talk about this in the video for the United States, but the United States was founded on 14-5 energy. And we can look back, obviously, even before the quote unquote birthday of the United States, to where that is so true. The United States took freedoms away. I mean, on a grand scale, holy guacamole. And we continue to do that. So that's what I mean. There's a lot of like emphasis here. And the karma of the United States is massive. It's massive. It's 250 years almost of building on that karma. And yes, there's like beautiful things that obviously have occurred and great breakthroughs, and we've come so far in so many areas, although many would say that a lot of that is getting pushed back. But, and we're kind of detracting a little bit here. But that just means that whoever, and it's not just one person, but here we are again in this situation where here's this individual who now sits in a seat on the global stage with a tremendous amount of power for influence and to do good, is just coincidentally Leo the 14th. This 14-5, right? So this is, again, anything that he does will likely require a tremendous amount of effort, commitment, follow through, and he will likely be met with a tremendous amount of opposition, a tremendous amount of pushback to try to deter him from doing that work. But it is interesting to me that he has the same exact life path energy with his now, the name that he's taken on. And he's from the United States. So it's just, I don't know, there's just a lot here where a lot of symbols, man. And I would say that, again, very significant that he was born in the US and has become Pope in a period where he has such a potential. He has such potential to do a tremendous amount of good to help the United States move towards satisfying its own karmic energy of the 14-5 and really stepping into that vibration in a healthy way. And again, bringing justice where there's been injustice, bringing greater freedom, right? I mean, it's so funny to me because like literally like the motto of the US is like land of the free, home of the brave. But it's like, if you get down to the core and the nitty gritty, it's like, are there a lot of freedoms? You know what I mean? Like freedoms for all, I mean, there's a lot, right? So yeah, it's just very interesting to me because he has the power and the potential to shed light on a lot of things, and not only shed light on them, but to like help find a better way, like help move towards the higher octave of the 14-5. Yeah, just very, very interesting stuff here. And I'm not saying that he's the chosen one and is going to save the world, but it's pretty ignorant to think that someone who is in a position of power doesn't have significant influence. Of course they do. That's sometimes the problem, but sometimes it can be the miracle. Sometimes it can create such a movement for good that it helps to wake people up, to recognize something bigger, to gain a bigger perspective, to, wake up to not only themselves, but to their humanity, and to see the humanity and the divinity within not only themselves, but others as well. So he does have the potential of doing that, and he's in a position to be able to do that. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. And another thing I want to mention about the 14-5, so, he hasn't sort of legally taken on his new name of Leo the 14th, right? But I think we can agree that this is a name now that he is energetically and physically taking on, right? And so in doing so, in numerology, that energy now becomes like a part of who you are. Like that walks in tandem with the energies that were present at birth. So having this 14-5 energy now as part of his energetic makeup, again, so fascinating, because if you have a life path of 14-5, sort of the goal of this energy, or so much of the goal of this energy, is to obviously move through life and learn from experiences, right? But, and through that process, your strength is tested. But you have the potential to bring incredibly inspired messages to the world through your work, through your written or spoken word, etc., etc. And so again, here is this individual who has the potential to change the world in a lot of ways, not by himself, but through the work that he does and how he inspires people by leading by example. He has the potential to wake a lot of people up that can bring in a tremendous amount of change and shifts in the world collectively. There's a lot happening here. There is a lot happening here, and I have goosebumps as I'm talking about it. So yeah, everything in life, well, not everything, but a lot of things in life, especially when it has to do with change and transformation, there's a catalyst. There's something that happens that shakes us awake or brings something to our attention, right? And the vibration of the 5 is that. It's the catalyst. It can be disruptive. It can be, it can come in and it can shake things up, and it can help us to progress forward. The 5 energy, which again, 14-5, is the progressive. It is the one who is the forward thinker. It's the one who is going to think differently, create differently, dance outside the comfort zone to create some kind of greater change within an experience or within the world, etc. This is a big energy. It's a fast-moving energy as well. So we might see changes start to happen quite quickly under this leadership. But the goal of the 5 energy, it's about evolution. It's a progressive energy. It's not interested in staying stuck in the past. It's not even interested in getting stuck in the present. It's a very present energy, but it's very much about how can we evolve and grow and expand, etc. So, yeah, this is also very like Pluto and Aquarius type of energy as well. So yeah, I don't know. I just think there's a whole heck of a lot of symbols here. And I mean, I'm excited to see what unfolds, to be honest. I'm excited. I hope that he takes the reins and does a whole lot of good with it. 'Cause it's always going to come down to his choice. And, like everything happening in the background as well. He's just one person. This is a institution, so I'm sure that he's limited to what he can do, but he can certainly lead by example and create a tremendous amount of, just change in the world. So anyway, that's it. I just wanted to kind of point some of those things out. Again, just my interpretation, just things I've noticed. It'll be interesting to see how he uses this power and what he does with it, and what good it creates in the world. Not only in the world, but also, in the United States. Because again, what the United States does, unfortunately, has impact on the world. Yeah. So let's pay attention. Let's see what happens. I'd love your comments if if you've noticed anything, or if anything's come up for you that you think was just kind of synchronistic or just interesting. Share it in the comments, and yeah, let's talk about it. Anyway, all right. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much for being here. Take care. Bye for now.